All right, calling to order. Redevelopment Commission meeting, September 24th, 2019. We do have a quorum present. First, I'm hoping everyone has had a chance to look at the minutes, review them from last meeting. Is there any discussion, questions, comments about the minutes from last meeting? Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next on the agenda is the approval of claims and purchase orders for payment. Today we have one claim that is for $7,550. Pam, can you go through and kind of explain what this claim is?
I think the claim is entirely just related to my time. So we have, again, the two matters. One is general, the other is project-related matter. So I think that amounts to the entire claim voucher for this month. So I'm not sure I have anything to add unless there are any questions.
Questions, Commissioners? Do I have a motion to approve? Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, moving on down the agenda, we have the staff report. Mr. Starnes, can you walk us through this, please?
I sure will. Thank you. First and foremost, we'll start with the Trades District, as we often do. We now have a finalized project agreement, and the Redevelopment Commission is executed. I should have signature from 3G Engineered Solutions yet today, and so we'll be under an agreement. I've also, some of you may remember the mayor's executive assistant, Julie Cocola, whose background was in journalism, actually. So she, as a consultant on behalf of the administration, authored a press release that I've also run by the 3G company just to make sure we're factually correct and there. And they've approved that. So I think we will be releasing that to local media yet this week. The only change was the Mackle entity. So if you'll recall, there was ManWeb Services was the company. They've kind of renamed that Mackle Inc. to match the real estate holding company name, DBA 3G Engineered Solutions. So when you see the press release, it will refer to 3G Engineered Solutions. That's the trade name they're going to use. Materially, otherwise, the project agreement is in the same form that it was when you all approved it last month. So that's the good news. We have an executed project agreement that will touch off I believe 60-day due diligence period. We'll be able to see them get to work here then, yet this year, pretty shortly. So beyond that, and just to preview something that I've put in new business, I think in order to inform kind of how that part of the Trades District works, I think it would be beneficial to seek sort of a third-party engineering expert's opinion as to, in the form of a traffic study, just to show sort of how ingress egress will work, and able to inform the site planning and accommodate neighbors. We've talked about how the traffic will flow in and out of there, and having right now a kind of a traffic study and have some recommendations about how that could work even once this new building is in could be good. I think, in my experience, that kind of traffic study is probably a $4,000 to $5,000 traffic study. So you'll note in new business, I've asked for approval to contact engineering firms and retain somebody in an amount not to exceed $10,000. That was a safe number. I don't think it will cost that much, and I think the value will be pretty high just in terms of accommodating, again, the conversations with neighbors about what this new site will mean and how it will affect traffic flow in and out of that section of the Trades District. So any questions about that? Great. So
Sure.
Hold on.
Which
Very question?
are you talking about? from Franklin Road all the way through and including, what
No, I think,
traffic flow you're going to study?
yeah, I think in terms of scope, we're mostly looking at the streets adjacent to the site. So Sellers,
Gotcha.
and then across the north, that little stub of Record Street that doesn't quite go through, but kind of how that all interacts with a new user of some size there and
Okay,
with Plummer
I'm with
Street.
you now.
So
Thanks.
just kind of a homework.
And Cam, I don't pay attention much to that area on Pillington Pike, but is there a left turn lane there where they would be building this Freesia building?
Left turn on Pendleton Pike,
On Pendleton
sort of turning north onto Sellers. There is, yes.
Yeah.
That's already a signalized intersection.
Okay.
Really?
By that catches the little chute of 46th Street that goes by Menards. It curves up behind the Popeyes to that same signal, goes across to Sellers where Papa's Pancake House is, and then Pendleton Pike is sort of the east-west. Well, it's at an angle, of course, but that street there. So I'm thinking from there up a block over around, there's Plummer Street. If that's sort of vacated to accommodate this site, how does that impact traffic flow around there with users to the north and to the west? So,
Okay.
And moving on then, absent further questions, Project Plum is the Williams Comfort Air project. They did close on property on East 59th Street, the former I-Corps property there. This commission previously approved a grant for training for Williams to use to train and certify future employees to add to their workforce. I have on the agenda then approval of sort of the form of that agreement. Again, just to reiterate the explanation, the grant would be made to Employ Indy, which is a Central Indiana workforce development organization that would administer those funds and ensure that the training takes place on the Williams side, and Williams would then seek reimbursement from Employ Indy via those grant funds. So there's a good check in place from an organization in Employ Indy that does this. So it'll be good to have an experienced partner that will administer those grant funds and ensure that they are used appropriately by the company toward those ends of training and employing people, which of course we want to support. But it will be good to have that headquarters again move from currently in Carmel. So good to have them here in Lawrence in general, and this training program I think will be really positive. I think I mentioned I met with the president of the company a couple of months back. He has, I think, a really positive vision for how he sees his company growing. And it's HVAC and plumbing, and I think some residential construction. Is pretty passionate about the training piece of things and building a pipeline for talent in the next generation of the company that I think will be great to host here in Lawrence and could provide good pathways for next job, better job for Lawrence community and residents. So I'm anxious to see that take shape. I would also mention, as to both, of course, we have and received word that we've been awarded a new EPA brownfield assessment grant. We should have access to those funds sometime in October, so sometime next month. And I think we'll be able to potentially utilize those funds to accomplish some assessment both on the Freesia site, which contains a former gas station, which tanks have been removed and all that, but just to make sure that due diligence is handled, and then also Williams Comfort Air, the I-Corps facility being formerly industrial, we could be able to assist with utilizing those grant proceeds to do some due diligence. Again, it's 100% reimbursed by the grant and will show good leverage to the EPA. We've put money into projects where we've got good economic development happening. So looking forward to those and being able to put EPA grant resources or deploy that grant in those ways. Any questions about Project Plum or the setup here, the structure of the grant agreement, project agreement?
You've told me once before, I'm going to ask you one more time. Is there a cost to us for the employee in the administration of those grant funds?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
but it is not separate from the approved amount.
Okay.
So of the 75,000 approved, there is, let's see, check the agreement. There's an administration fee, but it's part of that amount that's been approved,
amount.
not in addition to.
So that flows, this is really a Jason question that I'm interested in. That flows into our funds, if you will. Mm-hmm. We'll have disbursements
Right.
to that.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Bruce.
A couple more questions on that. Does the company expect that they're going to get any of the $10,000 that's for management of the grant?
No. The company, Williams Comfort Air?
Okay.
Is that what you mean? No, I think that's the administration portion that goes to Employee Indy to oversee the grant.
The company will have some administrative expenses.
Right. So I think those are part of the training expenditures that they have to prove in order to pull down grant funds as a sort of reimbursement of incurred costs.
Based on where the company is coming from, do you see an issue with the 70-30 split on the training money, with 70% of it having to be spent on Marion County residents?
No, I don't, and they don't either. I think they realized that part of the move when I met with the president was they realized a lot of their workforce actually lives in Marion County, despite the location in Hamilton County. I think they realized that was kind of an odd fit in a number of respects. I think they realized that. I don't think they felt really welcomed or wanted in Carmel as a sort of a trades-related organization, somewhat adjacent to downtown, or at least in the path of Carmel's expansion, and also realized that it was not convenient to the bulk of their employees that mostly live in Marion County anyway. So I think they were well familiar with the. Again, this program through Employee Indy has been in place for a while. The city of Indianapolis has used it several times for various types of companies at various levels of. I think this is the first time it's been used for trades.
The reason I asked that question is not only where they're coming from, but we're so close to the Hancock County line.
Oh, sure.
That
Good point. That restriction can impact them.
you know, my experience with this type of agreement is you're not going to get a waiver for the 70-30, and there's not going to be any reimbursement for anybody over the 30% for being out of the county.
Right. Yeah. I think that was clear to them, and they were still very. I think we're excited to take advantage of this program and see Lawrence fund it, even with those strictures in place, which I think they were familiar with. And I think they understand where that comes from, given that we are in Marion County. We need to be incentivizing training of Marion County residents. So that they do also have they've been advised by a consultant with KSM Location Advisors that is a sort of incentives procurement firm and will be, I think, on an ongoing basis, helping with Williams reporting and accountability as to the grant. So it'll be good to have a good, competent partner that's been there and done that. And I think they've assisted companies that have received these grants in the past and are familiar with how to make sure that they're doing things that will be reimbursed or recognizing when they won't be. Yeah.
So they're very aware of it.
Yes.
Thank you. That's a good question.
Next question. Who? My presumption is the controller's the money's gonna run through.
Right.
Jason.
Who is going to not track, but check and oversee, because this requires expenditures tracked by individual trainee. And who is going to do the verification of that? Because all of that has to happen before we will get any money from IPEC.
Money from where?
Private Industry Council. I'm sorry, I used to be in this business in Indianapolis Private Industry Council.
I don't think the Private Industry Council will be involved, at least relative to our training grant to Williams Comfort Air. Yeah, I think there's a different product where we are funding the grant through Employee Indy that it will administer. So that puts Employee Indy really in the seat to make sure that the training activities that are going on are reimbursable, and then it will then, utilizing the funds that we put forward, it will say, yes, this training's occurred. Here's sort of the draw to be made to reimburse
That's really what
those.
we're paying them for.
Right.
Right.
So I don't think IPEC will be involved. It's through Employee Indy that will be our grantee, and then they will work with the company on training and how those funds are released to pay for that training.
Who is going to make the certification to the grantor on the reimbursement claim?
Employee Indy. Employee Indy. They're a nonprofit workforce development group for Indianapolis. I think as a affiliate of the, I don't think they're technically an affiliate in the Indy Chamber, but they operate in that space. It's the Angela Karklitsch, Marie McIntosh are the executives of that. Oh, hey, look at that! Whoa,
How about that?
volume. Yeah, is that better?
It was my hearing aid.
Welcome to the meeting. Welcome to the meeting.
Yeah. So they, as the grantee, Employee Indy then make sure those funds are administered in a way that's consistent with the program that's outlined in the agreement by the company. So the company does the training. They say, hey, we've trained these people. These are our expenses. These are our costs. Employee Indy says, yeah, those are valid. Those are reimbursable. So the out of the pot that is funded by the Redevelopment Commission would say, yeah, you're eligible for the reimbursement for those training costs. So they're kind of the intermediary, helps us because we don't really do that. Employee Indy does that and has
Who does
experience with that. I'm sorry?
Employ Indy.
Employee Indy.
Yeah, that's the management company that we're paying
Yeah.
to do it.
Oh, we're paying a company to do it.
Yeah, we're paying, exactly. Comes out of the grants, but we pay them to do it.
Yeah. So that 10% administrative fee goes to them.
Are you good?
No, I'm confused, but that's all right. Which company is doing it?
Employee Indy. We have, the question that I originally asked had to do with, will the Employee Indy administration, okay, of this grant, they're the ones that administer it, cost us money? And the answer is yes, but the money it's going to cost us is part of the grant. Okay? So the management, I mean, I get what you're after. That's really what my concern was, that we had not only management, but we had the ability to pay them, and it's all part of the grant. Does that help? Not really. Okay.
No, okay, so if we have a third party that we're contracting with to do that.
Yeah. But they do it, these educational grants, they do it for all the education grants. Through, it is the chamber, isn't it, Cam?
Yeah, I just
Well,
happened
I
to.
shouldn't say that. They're affiliated with the chamber.
Yeah, it's a partnership with Indianapolis Chamber and the city and other workforce development groups.
I just looked it up to be clear on the history, and really it goes back to 1983 and was formed under the Federal Job Training Partnership Act. for delivering workforce services to Marion County. So it's been in existence since 1983. It's sort of the county-wide workforce development agency. So they have this existing training grant program that they've done with the city of Indianapolis for several years. A lot of it, I think, in speaking to this project was referred to us by the Indy Chamber. They got the initial lead and realized that we're building a strategy based on skilled trades, and also we're excited to see this used in a different kind of fashion. I think a lot of tech companies have utilized this training grant. So it's been more higher end tech jobs downtown that have benefited from this program in the past, whereby Indianapolis makes a grant to employ Indy to then do for then a company on the other end to do training and commit to a certain amount that is then reimbursed under the grant. So this is we've shifted it to Lawrence funding it for a skilled trades company that will locate here and has closed on land here, so they are moving here, and that will be the program. It's the agreement is what I circulated to you at last month's meeting.
Right.
Just to reiterate, the grant was already approved by prior resolution. This is just the agreement to administer.
The employee in Indy is the private industry council.
Oh, okay. I wasn't familiar with the term.
This says the grantee is responsible for doing the validation.
Right, and the grantee is Employ Indy.
Employee Indy is the grantor.
No, we're the grantor.
We're getting the money from private industry council. They have an agreement with us.
No, the funding is from the Redevelopment Commission to the grantee, which is Employ Indy, to administer on our behalf for the benefit of Williams Comfort Air as the user. In terms of timeline, I think that the grant itself was approved in September, August, in July at the July meeting. Then at the August meeting last month, I reformulated the agreement to fit Lawrence, as opposed to it's otherwise very similar to the agreement that is used when Indianapolis does this with Employ Indy to suit Lawrence, and made a few small changes to that, and that's what I handed you last month. So today's agenda is just approval of that. The grant's already been approved, but the money would flow from us through Employ Indy to benefit Williams Comfort Air. Any further questions on that? All right. I did want to have a discussion about 4399 Shadeland Avenue. Of course, we've talked about interest from Edwards Mechanical in the 4423 piece, which we've previously offered by RFP, consistently with Indiana law. Now, having not disposed it under that, we're free to unilaterally transact it, and we have approved previously contribution of that land to Edwards Mechanical for their fleet maintenance operation and a training certification facility. With an existing curriculum that they've used in some other locations that they have. They've inquired, of course, if you'll recall, 4399 Shadeland Avenue is the piece to the south that includes potential sort of ingress-egress to the Cato Trust property, which we previously discussed as a potential development opportunity, specifically with regard to multifamily and likely affordable multifamily. Upon receiving some news about capacity or lack of capacity in infrastructure, I think the developer that had been interested in that has kind of paused, but I think we still continue to value that strip that connects Shadeland Avenue to that site. Apart from that, there is a portion to the north that kind of bends back around and meets up with the building that is the former sheriff's garage that has a fence around it. So Edwards has interest in owning that as well and utilizing it as part of their site, which probably does make some sense, and I don't think would be really of benefit to future development on the Cato Trust property. So as far as I'm concerned, and this is the point of discussion, it would make sense for me for Edwards to own that portion as well, reserving the sort of ingress-egress strip, for lack of a better term. The question becomes, and they've said as much, they do want to own and control that as part of their site. Would put it back on the tax rolls, would make it part of their operations there. I think those are good things as far as we're concerned. The question becomes a sort of disposition method. As you'll recall, as we went through it with the Pendleton Pike property and the Shadeland property, state law makes it inconvenient, let's say, to sell property, even in a case where you know where who you think you'd like to buy it. We'd have to get it appraised and publicly offer it via RFP, which is probably really like a 90-day process, maybe 60 at the shortest to get the approvals and the appraisals and all that. So we could take that avenue, and I think that probably. I've been in discussion with Edwards' attorney about this exact process. They don't deal with municipalities all that often, but I think he is understanding what I'm saying about this. And I have a call with him tomorrow to talk about whether we should move forward with the 4423 agreement as it stands, or if we want to pause and see how we get 4399 included, potentially through an RFP. The other option, and this is what I wanted to bring up for discussion as well, is we could, because Indiana law allows us to do so, we could grant that 4399 property to Lawrence Community Development Corporation as a nonprofit. That is, and there is provision for that, and then under the terms of that transfer, ask that Lawrence Community Development Corporation split the parcel and sell or grant the northern part to Edwards Mechanical and keep the southern sort of ingress-egress strip to accommodate future development of the Cato Trust property. I think there are pros and cons to both. I did talk to Chris after our last meeting. I think that's something that just as the director and not speaking for his board, but thought that they may have some willingness to participate in, but I wanted to bring that to you all as a discussion point to say, I think we, in my understanding, have some good support for Edwards taking that 4423 Shadeland property. Makes sense to me that they would control the sort of fenced-in portion that's adjacent to the building. I want to make sure that you all agree. B, I wanted to sort of vet the potential paths we could go with you all about disposing that to Edwards. So again, I think that those two options are: one, we get to appraisals, well, I guess subparts to that. 1A would be we get two appraisals and we do an RFP for all of 4399. 1B would be we go through the process of splitting that and drawing the parcel line and going to plat committee downtown, getting it subdivided into a new parcel, appraise that and RFP that, and see, because We can't, in the meantime, of course, promise that to Edwards. We'd have to have them submit a proposal, but market that, sell it as a public offering. 2, we could pass a resolution granting it to the Lawrence Community Development Corporation with some caveats, one being we want the ingress-egress strip to sort of stay in its control to facilitate future affordable housing development, multifamily development on the property to the east there, and subdivide the parcel to then market and sell it. So those are, I think, the range of options that I've sort of researched and found. And so I wanted to, again, have that discussion and see what the thoughts are of the commission about the best way to approach really the context being this Edwards project and reusing the property. So what thoughts or questions do you all have?
You said that you have pros and cons to option 2 involving the Chris Barnett and his organization. What are your cons on that?
That was going to be my question as well.
Yeah, I think the primary one, again, we have a longstanding relationship with Community Development Corporation, with the habitat projects we've done and other single-family stuff, and also the Community Development Corporation's relationship with the RDC goes back, well before any of our involvement. But it does bear mentioning that by granting that, we would not directly control the disposition of that eventually. And while I know from talking to Chris, and I think several of us have, that he very much sees that Cato Trust property as a multifamily site that would be good for the area, the next Chris, the next board may, we can't guarantee that they would feel that way. I would tend to think they probably would. It's already zoned for multifamily, so I don't think there's a lot of risk there, but it bears mentioning that we would be forfeiting some direct control over the disposition of that strip. The other would be, it could be, I tend to think it's overly optimistic to think that we could really monetize that in the context of a future development. It does have real value to somebody looking at that site, as we saw with the Annex Group, and we had a discussion with them. That is the best way in and out. So you could hold that in the future, try to kind of make it a bit of a spite strip and try to monetize it. But if you're really in the business of trying to facilitate development, you probably end up contributing it down the road anyway, as we've seen. So again, it bears mentioning. I don't know that that's a huge con. I tend to think that's probably, personally, option 2 is probably the quickest path. And I do want to impress upon you that I think efficiency, given that we can't do anything so fast, but the efficiency is probably key to keeping Edwards' interest in this case. So I do think on the other side, the other options, the risks are more along the lines of extending the time frame and potentially losing the deal, losing the project because it's taking too long to control the site that they need to be able to utilize it.
I have 2 quick questions.
Sure.
One is financially, which one would be most efficient route to go? Is it 2?
Financially efficient. So I'll say this, under option 1, we are bound by statute to sell it for no less than the average of 2 independent appraisals. So depending on what you mean by financially efficient, I think on option 1, we would have to require that they buy it from us.
Okay.
We couldn't, unless we went through a scenario where we didn't get any proposals or we rejected proposals and waited 30 days, then we could unilaterally dispose of it as we saw fit. It adds another month. And as we saw with 4423, we could be in that situation, or that was the scenario with 7600 Pendleton Pike as well. We did an RFP, we didn't get any responses. So then there's a 30-day cooling off period, and then you can do whatever you vote to do. So that is an option, but straight through the RFP, we would have to have them buy it for no less than the average 2 appraisals. It's not tremendously valuable land. I meant to look up and refresh my memory about the current assessed value, but it's not otherwise improved. It's asphalt, but it's not otherwise improved. I don't think we're talking about, we're foregoing hundreds of thousands of dollars here. It's probably tens at best, low tens. So there's that. Efficiency, just in terms of getting it to the end user and supporting the project, I think 2 is faster.
And then just for like the record, how long have we had the property and been trying to?
Good question. No, that's a very good question. Certainly predates me. I think the sheriff, it was originally a Toyota dealership back in the 70s. Sheriff, I want to say, got a hold of it in the 90s maybe, and I believe sold it to the city for $1. I mean, gave it to the city in 2010 or 11.
So we've been trying to get some.
It's been a while.
Okay.
And it is I think we've talked about this before, but it does bear reiterating. It's a maintenance headache currently.
Yeah.
It's vacant and abandoned, and we've had a couple of false starts on potential users. And in the meantime, anybody decides to break in, then we've got to send police out. We've sent DPW crews out to board it, and it's costing us money, and it's not on the tax rolls, and it's otherwise kind of a black hole. So, yeah.
Thanks, Cam.
So, I have
Yes, Jerry.
back in the, this is a little bit of ancient history, but it's recent ancient history. Okay. Back in June 18th, we sent emails back and forth to one another concerning this topic.
Uh-huh.
Back then, we were of the mind that we wanted to dispose of this property as soon as possible.
Right.
Okay? And we were looking for the best use of the property. I mean, what's best for the city of Lawrence and what's best for that neighborhood.
Sure.
Okay? And we said we were going to ask Edwards to put together a business plan to tell us, we want that property, and here's what we're going to do with it. So that we like Edwards. We think they're upstanding, they're an upstanding company. It'd be great to have them there, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure.
And we just want to see that documented from Edwards to say, here's what we're going to do. And then we'd have the best use in hand, which would facilitate, I thought, what we were trying to do is to facilitate some quick action, which would involve, the only way we can get quick action on the property like we would like, to involve the CDC.
Right.
To stipulate, based on what we agreed we saw in that business plan, and they agreed they were going to do with that property, that we would move forward.
Sure.
Okay. Did we ever get a business plan from Edwards?
So I think we got a couple of letters outlining their estimates for sort of construction rehabilitation budget, and an explanation as to the number of employees and net investment and the wages and what they would use the facility for. So in my mind, yes, just in terms of the things that I tend to look for from an economic development standpoint, what's your investment? What's the job impact with wages? What's the use and what's the fit like? So that's where we got to. I think they're estimating. Sorry.
Formalized from the principles of Edwards and signed off on, and then that would give us hey, this is best use. This is what we'd like to do. Mm-hmm. Let's go with option 2. I thought that's where we were headed.
Well, I guess to clarify, I thought we were.
I could be misunderstanding now.
Because then, was it June or July? So July, I think, the meeting, we passed a resolution agreeing to contribute the property on the basis of what they said they would do in the letters. So I think this is.
Now we're going the right way.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So this is just an added piece. They're saying, what about this fenced-in area and how do we get it?
We use terms like partner and incentives and et cetera
Right,
at that time.
right.
So, yeah.
Yes. So, and I think it was on the basis of what they had submitted. I think that was
Right.
the basis on which the commission voted to say, well, this 4423 piece that we've already done an RFP on and we can contribute, we will give to them to facilitate this development.
Yeah.
This is sort of the, oh, what about that fenced-in portion to the south that is actually
I'm with you.
technically a different property? So,
Got that. I understand.
okay, okay,
So, kind of circling the wagons
yes.
for a second here. What do we need to do today to do the best thing for the city of Lawrence? That's really the question, isn't it?
I think so. And I wanted to get your thoughts and questions. My thought would be if you would authorize me to move forward on working with the Community Development Corporation on a sort of structure of granting the property to the ends that we all care about,
Right.
to then look at and potentially approve at the next meeting. I think that's probably the most efficient path, and I think the best way to keep Edwards' interest, to keep the project on track while preserving potential future ingress egress from what we think could be a development site in the future. So that's what I see as the most efficient path, and best. I think in terms of best for the city of Lawrence, I'd like to see Edwards' project take shape here, and I also care about making sure that if we get to a point where the infrastructure could support it, or we have a way to get there, I'd really like to see multifamily development there on the Cato Trust property, and I tend to trust that we're very well aligned with the Community Development Corporation in terms of vision in that regard, and I don't see it as a huge risk to have them control that. And it probably makes it more efficient later. So I think in terms of moving forward, if you all would consent to have me work on that agreement and then bring it back to you next month to approve, then I would be happy with that.
That would be fine with me, Cam. In fact, I'd look forward to that. But there's one piece that's kind of the head end of that I'd like to see.
Sure.
And I'd like to see the Edwards people signing off on a business plan. Take the letters that you got, kind of consolidate them.
And actually, that's a good point. In the interim, post-July resolution,
Right.
I did draft and send just an initial draft of a project agreement to them.
Excellent.
In their response, what I had done is essentially kind of attach those letters as exhibits to say, here's what you said you would do, and kind of build it into the verbiage of the project agreement. Then through future discussion, through follow-up discussions with their attorney, we decided to create an exhibit that kind of does exactly that and consolidates the letters and the meat of them into one page. So I have that for you, yes.
And we have a basis for doing this.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And so I think we're working toward that as a portion of the project agreement,
And we can
which would,
kind of pull this whole thing together by the next meeting.
right,
Well, that's great.
would hope so. I'll talk to Chris. But I did after the last meeting.
That's my 2 cents worth.
Okay, good. Yep. Good question. Thank you. All right.
So what do you look,
That I do have a new.
Mr. President?
I was going to say, do we need a motion to approve for
Well-
Cam to?
We will. I have that as a new business item in the agenda.
Okay.
So that's what I would ask you to do is when I said consent to explore the grant of $43.99, that really is what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Cool.
So we'll get to that in new business. Lastly, on the staff report, I do want to touch on the Old Marsh property. I think I mentioned previously there had been a rezoning petition that would change the zoning to allow for a wholesale use. We've had some additional detail come in, and what was in the packet that was circulated to you is kind of that's the addendum to their zoning petition. It came to the council, the Lawrence Council, on rezoning, and was denied 6-2. I think really, I met with the petitioner, the prospective buyer, and their planner yesterday. And their feedback after that council meeting was that the council didn't really necessarily want to shut it down. They just didn't feel like they had all the information necessary to approve it, and they can't continue it once it's there. So they essentially had a weird hurry-up vote, and some of them conservatively voted no, even though, by and large, they would tend to support this and have expressed that after the meeting. So now it's on appeal to the Metropolitan Development Commission downtown. To add some more structure to the use, in case you didn't wade through the packet, it is a wholesale outlet for food-related goods. They are committing now to open a retail outlet adjacent to in the sort of the strip center adjacent to the marsh itself. I guess to back up, the wholesale use would operate sort of normal business hours, 8 to 5. They would have pretty limited truck traffic. I think, as they explained it to me, the overall noise and traffic impact relative to deliveries and trucks is actually a lot less than what a grocery store would have, because generally their deliveries get there at night and they're backing up to the loading dock at the back of the building, which is immediately behind some houses there to the west and to the south. So they're agreeing to restrict their truck in and out to business hours 8 to 5. It's otherwise pretty quiet. They don't have a lot of other traffic to the warehouse because it's a wholesale use. There had been some feedback, I think, from the neighborhood, and I did encourage them to reach out and try to meet with counselors and constituents as they could. They certainly had plenty of people say, we want that to be a grocery store again, which, the economics of that are just difficult. But I think as a concession, in a way, they've agreed. You'll note in the packet under item 2 for uses to do a retail store for at least as a trial run in the strip center adjacent, where they would do some resale, and to explore having a mobile. I think they're looking to partner with an organization called Imperfect Produce to do a pop-up produce market on a regular basis, to see how that goes, just to add kind of a retail component. And then that's what I think they mean by farmer's truck. And then they've agreed to exclude certain uses that are there in attachment E. I'll say this. So I guess you'll note in business, I will ask you to consider allowing me to write a letter of support for their appeal. My reasons are, I guess, twofold, if not three. One, the other, and I've been in pretty close contact with the seller's broker about the other interest that they're getting in this property. It's boat storage, trailer parking, or some fledgling religious organizations. Those are really the three. And she said, by and large, more recently, it's been a couple of churches would be the other alternative. So given that, and I think the sort of potential impact to the neighborhood and tax revenues, et cetera, I see this as the best of the options that are out there, personally, just in terms of utilizing the space in a way that's viable. I don't think it's going to be obtrusive or I don't think they'll be a bad neighbor, given the fact that this is residential, sort of bordered by residential. I do think the restricted hours and the utilization of the property as a wholesale, primarily non-retail outlet is, it has been approached in a way that's intentionally sensitive to the neighborhood. And then two, these are, I would point out, these are Lawrence Township. It is Kamal and Iqbal Sadiq. Both of them are Lawrence North graduates. They've operated this business for several years and been successful. They see this as a way to bring it back to the city in which they grew up. I think they really do care to be sensitive and listening to the neighbors, and they've made some concessions in that regard. And I think that's not a bad story. Is it my first choice use? No, but my first choice use is not. The market's not generating my first choice use. So unless we wanted to do something crazy and buy it as a commission and try to control it and incentivize it, which I don't think we have the means to do, This is the best option that I've heard so far. So I'll say that. But what concerns or questions or thoughts do you all have in that regard?
Not really concern or a question, just trying to understand. You're saying that they're going to take the former Marsh store and use it for their wholesale food services, storage and distribution, et cetera?
Yes.
Then they're going to go to the vacant restaurant, which is just to the north of the Marsh store, and use that for a retail outlet?
Yes.
So they're going to actually cover 2 spaces?
Right.
Interesting. Their existing location, Cam, where is that?
You know, I'm not.
Way you could look at it?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I don't know if I have the address, or if I do, I've not looked it up. I think they have a couple of different smaller warehouses that they're looking to consolidate here, and I'm not sure exactly where they are.
Just from a Lawrence standpoint, just it's from a Franklin Road standpoint,
Yeah.
visibility on Franklin Road's kind of a concern. That thing has been vacant for 3 years. It's a sore eye, obviously.
Yeah.
If there's anything we can do to improve it, that'd be wonderful.
Right.
But at the same time, not knowing what the visibility is going to be like, I'd like to see where they are now and see what, I mean, I understand the limited truck use, but what's it going to look like?
I think it'll look much like it does now,
Okay.
but they, then we'll have an owner that will need to maintain it and keep it up. I don't think they will make substantial changes to the appearance. It's got, a brick structure with the roof. I think what they have now probably looks more like just a simple warehouse.
It's a simple warehouse.
Yes, that's my guess, and I've not seen it. I think there had been, and I don't know that they put this in the. Looking to see if they put this in the actual petition. Yeah, well, they do agree that they're going to erect and maintain a privacy fence around the border, which is not currently there. They do intend to install new landscaping to the north, and will not do outdoor storage, so all be contained within the building, which I think is big, because if it were utilizing the parking lot for outdoor storage, I think that'd be negative, personally.
Well, they've acknowledged they're going to, I mean, the visibility is going to improve somewhat.
Yeah, I think it at least does.
Wash the windows.
It at least doesn't get worse, right? And so that's always a concern. When I met with them, they did talk about, they're not going to need all that parking out front.
Right.
Because it's the retail space will actually be small. It's not a 30,000 foot retail. They did, they had talked about maybe that's a future development site into outlots or things that are more up on the street that would be more positive. I tend to think that would be good. They actually, when I first met with them, mentioned, I think they have now removed multifamily from the permitted uses list. They've put that they're agreeing to strike that. It would otherwise be potentially permitted. That was due to some, I think, a remonstrator in the council meeting that was very opposed to it.
Were you there for that meeting, the council meeting?
I was not.
But you could see it on the tape.
And I did talk to them about it, and have followed up about it. So they did have some remonstrance about, we don't want multifamily. Part of me personally thinks that's kind of too bad, but they have let go of it just in sort of as a concession to the community, which is good in its own way. But I do think they did talk about potentially taking out some of that front-loaded parking for expanded landscaping, something else that would be, I think, visibly better than what's there. But I do think in their hands, given the use, it at least doesn't get worse and will be better maintained than it currently is as a vacant shopping center.
Do we have 30 days to table this? so we could do some due diligence on SE imports and wholesale. I'm kind of with Jerry that, and with you, that this may be the best of the mediocre alternatives, but we don't know anything about SE imports and wholesale, and I'd like to know kind of where they are and how much history they have in their business. Do we have 30 days before we have to submit a letter of support?
They go before the MDC on October 14th, 16th.
So we don't.
No.
I know.
Yam, do we have a guarantee of what products they'll be selling in the resale shop as opposed to the wholesale? Because it seems when you look at the products that they sell, grand majority is smoking paraphernalia. And if they're kind of saying, look, we're going to be community friendly, I'd rather not drop a wholesale cigar shop in the middle of a neighborhood.
No, right. I think the point there was to have a retail food outlet.
Okay. With no, outside of the food truck, the possible imperfect truck, no fresh food, all processed packaged.
They otherwise don't distribute fresh produce.
But it just in the general resale, just no, it would just be prepackaged.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It would
Okay.
be a retail outlet of what they otherwise wholesale,
Okay.
with the addition of an occasional, if it works, a farmer's truck. So again, I don't know that it's necessarily ideal, but the current owner is a very motivated seller, as his broker has told me multiple times. And I think almost from a defensive standpoint, given what she's told me the other uses are, I mean, he doesn't care who he sells to. He sells to anybody with cash.
Sure.
So, the next range of options I like much less. And I will say, I think your point about research of the company is good. I've not done that in great depth. I've met with them now 4 times, I think. Both of the principals and their between conference calls and in-person meetings, I think it's been 4 times. And they're represented by David Kingan, who's a planner, does a lot of land use stuff. So he's set up several meetings. So I've met Kamal and Iqbal both in person. And they do, my impression was good. I don't know what their current facilities look like. I'm not sure where they are. I know they are, I think they're kind of scattered, and they're looking to really consolidate and have more space under one roof. It's growth for them, but I think they've kind of built this from the ground up and have had some success. So I'm not sure if that tells you anything at all, but again, I think a lot of my motivation is I would rather see this than boat storage.
Right, exactly. Get it?
Could we do a conditional vote, and we've got 24 hours to send you an email and say, we changed my mind? Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but I don't know if they've been in business a week, a month, 2 years, and I don't know if they're selling. I mean, I see the tobacco, which, may or may not be a concern, but, what are they selling out of there?
Yeah, on their website, there's cell phone accessories, and then their beverages are like energy drinks and pop, and then tons of tobacco products, and then wholesale is just a list of products. Mostly toilet paper and T-shirts and lighters.
I'm just getting a flea market feel.
That's kind of where I'm at.
And I know it's better than the alternatives that you're.
Well, the one thing I'd want you to keep, the Marsh store, the bulk of it, whatever it is they're selling, is not a retail operation. You're not going to have a flea market because you can't just walk in there and buy stuff. They distribute
Yeah.
mostly to C stores and other convenience locations.
Just want to make sure.
The retail outlet was just we'll try it. It would probably be food-related goods that they carry that they would put in a retail location just to see how it goes, because the neighborhood has said, we want you to sell us food products. So, I think what they sell may not be if you considered it all in one place, I don't know if it'd be a desirable retail location, but they're they're a wholesale outlet.
Yeah, my take on it is 90% of it's going to be the wholesale outlet, and they're going to try this retail to make everybody satisfied and happy, but it'll probably flounder and it won't work. So
Yeah, that's very
I'm more
possible.
concerned about the wholesale outlet. Is it going to be a flea market? I just would like to do a little bit of diligence on this company before.
And I'm happy for you to do so. And if you said don't send a letter, I won't send a letter. I want you to understand that I think there's risk that it goes a worse direction.
I'm with you.
And I would say I think I see your point about flea market, except when I see flea market, I think of that as you have customers off the street. This is that whatever they're distributing would be within the four walls of the marsh primarily, which would make it not even visible to the public.
Just on and off a truck.
Right, through the back, on and off a truck, it's stored there, and then it's shipped to their eventual customers. So I'm not sure I understand that. Retail component, does it work, does it not work? Hard to say. I think they're just trying to be flexible and give people what they wanted to see in a small space to see if it works. I don't know. I don't think it's probably toilet paper and T-shirts. I think it's probably packaged goods and drinks and things. It's probably a C-store, honestly.
And we are out of time.
Yes, we are.
Old business, I think we covered pretty well.
Right. So this would be, on the back of the approval of the grant itself, and approval of the agreement to move forward, and I will get that finalized, and especially now that they've closed and we'll be moving in, get that in place so that we can start the programming for the training.
Okay. And then very quickly, new business, which we've talked about, the 4399 Shadeland property, and we need to vote, give CAM consent to move forward with the CDC.
I think just backing up, I would ask you to vote on the approval under old business as well. We tabled that
Okay.
last meeting, which is
We
why
did
it's under
table that
old
last
business,
meeting.
but I don't yet have your vote for approval of that agreement.
Do I have a motion to approve moving forward with the Project Plum agreement and employ ND?
So moved.
Second?
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Do I have a motion to approve the consent for CAM to move forward with the 4933 property and the CDC?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Gotta be quicker over there.
I'm trying, man. I'm just trying to give you guys a fair shot here.
Do I have approval for consent for CAM to move forward retaining an engineering firm not to exceed $10,000 to do a traffic study for the Free Trades District area?
So moved.
Second.
There you go.
All in favor?
Hey.
Aye.
And then on this, what do you want to do about this third one, Cam? What do you wanna-
So I guess where it comes from is I certainly wouldn't ever submit any kind of letter that purports to be in my role as director of the commission without your approval to do so. I have a consulting engagement with the city itself as well. I think if the mayor told me to go ahead, I could do it that way. If the Redevelopment Commission has reservations and doesn't want me to submit a letter on its behalf, I won't. If you, I think you could vote to, say pending sort of approval in the next, in the next week or so, after commissioners have time to do some research.
So we have till mid-August, is that meeting, correct?
Yeah, October 16th, I think,
Mid-October, okay.
is the MDC meeting. So they would, if it's going to do any good, it would need to be submitted sort of in advance of that date, just so that board sees it.
Why don't we,
So if you had,
suggestion that we go ahead and vote on it, and then if we change our mind, then we'll.
just let me know, and I won't
voice that.
send the letter. Sure,
Yeah,
that's fine.
that's a good way to do it.
All right, motion to approve consent to write the letter of rezoning petition.
So moved.
Do I have a second? All right, all in favor?
Aye. You don't want to do it, huh?
I need more information.
Well, I'm uncomfortable. I think we're all uncomfortable with it.
Yeah.
I get
Are
it.
you okay with us moving forward, and then we can always tell Cam to hold off, which is kind of the point, I think.
I don't know. I just don't feel comfortable. I need to do more information, but there's enough votes for Cam to be able to do it.
Okay.
Just a comment on that. I don't feel like it's something we need to have a secondary meeting half the month.
Yeah.
So that's why I thought maybe a conditional approval like we're doing. If somebody feels the need to have another meeting before the next meeting to address this issue, that's fine too. I don't really feel that, but.
I don't feel I don't feel the need to have another meeting. I mean, I just want to learn some more because there's all these letters of support and then the council voted it down, which I'd like to know what the other side was before I mean, that's really where I'm at.
That's fair.
And if I could,
Yes.
and I think we would encourage Cam, as he gains more information or something else comes up, you may want to do something different.
And I plan to go back and watch this meeting to see what
Yeah.
was going on.
I think we're all uncomfortable with it. But at the same time, I have enough confidence in Cam to know that
Yeah.
if he thinks this is the best we can do for Lawrence, that's probably, but it's an uncomfortable situation.
Building's been vacant how long now?
Over 3 years.
Thank you, we're in court.
Well, I mean, I trust you, Cam. The issue is I just want to know what the other side was that was presented at the meeting.
Yeah, and right, I think it was, at that time, I would point out, I think they had not crossed off multifamily yet.
Okay.
One of the most vocal remonstrator was anti-multifamily on the site. They've taken that off the list now. And I think I think 6 signed up to speak, and in the end, only 4 did. And another was a guy who owns apartments across the street that really wanted a retail component because I think he saw that as a benefit to his residents and probably his property value. So that's kind of where that came in. There was actual feedback that said, we want you to do retail of some kind. And overall, I think they got informally from... and he did point out to me that, everybody within the 2-block radius gets the notice.
Yeah.
None of the people in the 2-block radius are who showed up. It was people that are kind of in the neighborhood but further away. And I think their sort of download to me from feedback after the meeting is the council felt a little bit hamstrung. This meeting happened just after Labor Day. They had made some late changes to the packet. And I don't think all the counselors were up to speed, but they're in a position where under the statute, they can't vote to continue, which is what a lot of them told the petitioners they would have liked to do. So they were sort of like, I hadn't made it through the packet, so I kind of had to vote no. But I would certainly encourage you to reach out to the counselors and watch the meeting and see what you think.
I just want to make sure I have both sides. That's just my biggest concern before I cast a vote.
And we don't need unanimous.
Yeah, you
consent.
don't
We
need
had-
unanimous.
We had 3 anyway.
You have everybody but me.
Yeah, I'm not going to send it tomorrow. Let me know what you think in the
Yeah,
meantime.
I'll watch it tonight when I get home.
Any other business to come for the commission? Chris? All right. Motion. Can I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
Second? Meeting adjourned.